An historic day for the world, but particularly US President Donald Trump, credited with bringing peace to the Middle East. Should he get a Nobel Peace Prize? We speak to his friend, the journalist Piers. We also discuss what will happen next in Gaza with Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister Sharren Haskel, and we speak to a man who has been helping to support the families of the hostages held in captivity for 2 years, due to be released this weekend.
All the credit goes to him. He put all of his political capital, all the pressure, got all the actors in line that we asked for a lot of time. For 2 years, we are begging to demand from Qatar, from Turkey, from Egypt to put all of their pressure and to bring Hamas to the table in these conditions. So I think that, of course, he should get this prize.
It was an extraordinary moment at a press conference at the White House last night.
Many years. And that's why we're all working with Treasury, with all these different departments, to find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I'm just given. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly. So I will take a couple of more questions.
The US president then posted on his social media site soon after, in typically understated fashion, "I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps towards a strong, durable and everlasting peace. We thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen." And then in capitals, "Blessed are the peacemakers." So the details of the ceasefire are as follows: is expected to begin tonight. The hostages are to be released from Gaza over the weekend in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Details remain sketchy on how the prisoner release will work. There are reports that there are 1,700 detainees in Israel that include women and children, and 250 prisoners that include people imprisoned for terror offences. It is, of course, a historic breakthrough, although key details remained unconfirmed. For example, around the disarmament of Hamas and the future governance of Gaza, both important parts of Trump's 20-point peace plan, of which this is the first phase. Of course, there's also now mounting speculation as to whether the US president should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It cannot happen for this year because the deadline is literally this week. Questions are now raging as to whether he deserves it, being such a controversial and outspoken figure on other areas. But at the same time, clearly, his impetus has always been to secure peace, to end the bloodshed in the Middle East, and that's what he appears to have achieved. Intriguingly, I have interviewed Piers for a future podcast about his new book, Woke is Dead, and I spoke to him about whether his friend, Donald Trump, who, let's be honest, he speaks to quite a lot, should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
If Trump gets these hostages back, and there aren't many left alive, maybe 20, we think, but if he gets the hostages back and he gets the IDF to stop bombing Gaza, and he has a ceasefire, which is then a workable start of a plan to a genuine settlement over there, it will be one of the most remarkable achievements that any American president has achieved in modern times. And I've said to people for a long time, I read a column in The Spectator right at the start of his presidency saying, here's my prediction as everyone's screaming.
Yes, I remember this.
Everyone's screaming again about the new Hitler and they're all Nazis and all this. I said, unlike Adolf Hitler, here's what I suspect he's going to do. He's a man who prefers peace to war. Yeah. He's going to try and forge peace in Ukraine, which will be very difficult. But I think he may be more successful in the Middle East. And I suspect he will deserve, not get, because there'll be a lot of people who just on principle won't want to give him a Nobel Peace Prize. But if you think what Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize for, literally 8 months into his tenure for a couple of fancy speeches, if Trump gets peace in this war, I think he not only deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, he should absolutely get the Nobel Peace Prize. And the only thing that will stop it happening is a ludicrous double standard.
Well, joining us now from Israel is the Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharren Haskel. Thank you for reappearing on the Daily Tea. Lovely to see you. We were together at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, and you've returned to Israel to what appears to be extremely good news. the potential release of these hostages on Sunday. What's your reaction to what's been announced?
Wow, it's a mixed feeling. On the one hand, we are extremely excited. Finally, hopefully during this weekend, hostages who were held for 2 years, being tortured, abused, sexually, physically, emotionally, will be able to be back in the loving arms of their family. We are really excited and thrilled and happy about it. At the same time, we need to understand what's the cost for that as well. The families of the victims of terrorist attack who were murdered in the most brutal way you can imagine. Those perpetrators who were convicted of murder, hundreds of them will be released back into society with no restrictions. And this is a very difficult place for many of these families, for many people in Israel, people who took part in the 7th of October massacre. It is very difficult at the same time.
You're talking there, Ms. Haskel, about the 2,000 or so people who have been imprisoned on Israel's side. I mean, some of them are women and children, aren't they?
No, all of them. So women and children were released, not children, but women were released in the first stage.
Okay.
And right now, the convicted prisoners who are going to be released on the Palestinian side are people that many of them have committed terrorist attacks. I think all of them are men, but I'm being very cautious because in an hour, there's going to be a cabinet meeting here in the government. We're going to talk about the in-depth detail, the names of the people that are going to be released, what they've committed, what crimes they were convicted of, and that's going to be very difficult.
But there has to be some kind of quid pro quo in any negotiation, doesn't there? I mean, to get the 48 hostages back. And let's be perfectly honest here, Deputy Foreign Minister, some of these hostages, unfortunately, there are bodies going back to families.
Yeah. And we look throughout the last 2 years, every time we had a diplomatic path to reach our goals of the war, which are the release of the hostages, which are to dismantle Hamas, we chose the diplomatic path, even though those huge concessions and the difficulties that comes with it. We always turn to measures of army, of military campaign when we didn't have any other choice. And I think this is something that any other country would have done to protect and defend its community, to bring back people who were abducted from the beds for 2 years are being tortured and abused.
When it comes to the future governance of Gaza, do you have any more detail on the plan and particularly, of course, Hamas's future in Gaza?
So Hamas right now has accepted only the first stage of the deal that speaks about the return of the hostages and the release of those convicted prisoners. It hasn't accepted the second stage. And I have to say, even though when Trump put that peace plan on the table, Israel accepted it immediately as it is. The international community embraced it and adopted it. The Arab world, including Turkey and Qatar and Jordan, have said yes to that peace plan, which include the first stage and the second stage. And I have to also say, even the Palestinian Authority have accepted it. Unfortunately, right now, Hamas agreed only for the first stage. The second stage speak about the day after, and the fact that Hamas doesn't have any role in that future, not from a military perspective and not from a civilian perspective. And that was something that was accepted by everybody, because we cannot live beside a terrorist organization, not the Israelis and not the Palestinians either.
Ms. Haskel, earlier on we asked Piers Morgan, who is close to Donald Trump, whether the US president should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. What do you think? How influential has his role been in this ceasefire deal?
So, look, I think that first of all, there were two factors in all the ceasefire that you've seen here in Israel, in Gaza, with Hezbollah, with Iran. The first one was military pressure, and the other one was Trump's pressure on the aggressors, on Hamas and on Hezbollah and on Iran, to accept that ceasefire. He has a major place in that, a major role. And I think that during these times when we've seen what he pushed, negotiated, and led in the Middle East, but not just the Middle East. Look on what he's done with India and Pakistan, on the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, on many areas, and even the first discussions between Ukraine and Russia. I think that if he will not receive the Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize, it will just turn into another institution that has been politicized, that cares more about politics than actions and what's in the reality.
You're going into a cabinet meeting now. How confident are you that your colleagues are going to support this deal? Some members of the coalition, Security Minister Gvir, Finance Minister Smotrich, are saying that they will not vote for the deal.
So it's important also to just mention the Israeli governments run very differently to the UK government. You know, we don't speak in one voice. Many of them have their opinions and they voice it out loud. There's many voices for that. And it's okay. We have that discussion as a democracy, but as a parliamentary system. I think that right now in the cabinet, there's a majority for Prime Minister Netanyahu. I back him. Most of the ministers back him on this deal, as we've done last time. And it's important also to remember the last ceasefire. Ben Gvir actually resigned from the government because he opposed that deal. But the Prime Minister Netanyahu still had a majority and still passed that deal with our backing.
What do you make of the criticisms of Netanyahu that he has prolonged the fighting for his own political gain?
Look, we are a democratic society and we can have a conversation about everything. Sometimes even leaders take the wrong decision. You have advisors who advise you wrongly. Personally, I've criticized Prime Minister Netanyahu through the last 2 years. For example, in March, when they reduced the intensity of the maneuver and the military operation in Gaza, I said that if we go into a quiet ceasefire because of the international pressure, that will prolong the war. And it did, at least in 6 months. And I think that was in the past the wrong decision to make. We should have continued with a full operated military campaign, but we're not in the past. I think that definitely the decisions that were made during the last year have led Israel to many victories and secure a lot of the safety of Israel for many years to come, whether it was in the Lebanese border with Hezbollah, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and now with Hamas as well.
And finally, Ms. Haskel, take off your political hat for a moment and let's just speak as mums here, because Israel and Israelis have endured the most horrific last 2 years, as have people on the Palestinian side in Gaza. There has been intense suffering. How does it just feel as a human being to think that there is at least at last a prospect of peace, not just for you, but also for Palestinians and for both of your children, essentially? I mean, this is quite the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, it's very important to understand we have always, but always wanted peace and stability. We never wanted that war. That war is a tragedy for both sides. There isn't a war you can conduct without casualties, without horrendous sights, without bodies. I know that, trust me. I was a combat soldier for 3 years during the times of the Second Intifada. I don't wish those sights but to be seen by anyone. And that's why also, in the beginning of the war, it took us 3 weeks to set a military operation. During this time, we told Hamas, if you dismantle and disarm, and if you return our hostages, there won't be a single soldier in Gaza. And they declined. We know what the price of war is, but unfortunately, it wasn't up to us. And, we think about the prospect of the future. And I think that the peace plan that Trump has put on the table will actually be able to build a path towards coexistence towards the capability of Palestinians and Israelis living side by side. Because he's not obsessed by some slogan like a two-state solution. He talks about education. He talks about the economy. He talks about security. So he understands the needs of both sides. And so we have to have a conversation about education so that the children of Gaza will look on Israelis not as enemies, but as people who can live side by side. And that is the only thing that will be able to prevent another war, another round of conflict, and another cycle of violence and death.
Sharren Haskel, Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel, thank you very much for joining me on the Daily Tea again.
Thanks a lot, Camilla.
Joining me now is Gili Roman, whose sister Yarden was taken hostage on October the 7th. Yarden was amongst the first hostages to be released in November 2023, but Gili has been campaigning for the return of the others ever since. Gili, thank you so much for joining me on the Daily Tea. In the first instance, I mean, this is a nightmare that you have lived. Yes, you got Yarden back, but you've been helping the families of hostages who have remained in captivity since October the 7th, try and get through this ongoing nightmare. What's the reaction to the news that we've heard overnight?
I think it's exhilaration. If you see the photos of people dancing in the streets, families crying, weeping of joy, we can see smiles on faces of hostage family that we haven't seen for the last 2 years. And I'm watching closely, being side by side with them. It's incredible, but it's not only among the hostage family. I think it's a national thing of just joy and relief.
Yes, although it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because while some hostages will be coming back alive, other families will be receiving bodies, which must be so difficult to even begin to comprehend the grief and the misery that will cause this weekend.
It's true. I think that it is something that we are quite acquainted with as Israelis, like living with happiness and pride along sorrow and pain. Even our Independence Day is connected to our Memorial Day. So I think that we will be joyful and extremely happy for the return of all the living hostages, but also grieving afterwards for the dead hostages that will be returned. But let's remember, those families are agonizing for the last 2 years, some of them less than 2 years. That will be at least a way for them to have this circle closed and to have the ability to bury their loved ones and give them the honor that they deserve. But yes, it's heartbreaking, and I'm very sorry that many families are going to experience that. But we as a nation will be able to do both. We'll be able to fully enjoy and share our happiness, but also our grief.
I mean, your sister had an appalling experience, but you got her back fairly quickly. Have you been advising the family? Has your sister been helping to prepare them for receiving back relatives who have lived in the most appalling conditions for the last 2 years? How can you prepare?
First of all, it's funny that not funny, but it's funny and disturbing that we are relating to my sister time in captivity as quick. She was 54 days without freedom in the hands of terrorists. But yes, relatively to 700 and more days, it is quick. But just to see how much it's not only you, it's only us. Our perspective has been can be twisted. Look, it's very hard to say how to accept them. I don't think there is a manual. I'm going to have tonight probably a conversation with some of the family members to share with them our experience. I think you just need to be very patient, very loving, very supporting. Each case is unique. and it's related to the character of the hostage that is coming back. It's related to the condition. It's related to the time, related to the family. So my main advice is just like be very patient, be very subtle, try to listen. But I think the most important thing is give yourself the opportunity to hold this person, to embrace their return, to hug them, to listen to them a lot.
Yes, yes.
I think the most important thing, I would say, the most important thing for someone who is coming from captivity is to have they have autonomy and sovereignty over their own life and their decisions. So we need to give them as much freedom to convey their wishes, their desires, and also their reservations from things, and to be in tune with that. So this is the most crucial thing, because what has been deprived for them is the essential thing is deprived for them is their freedom, their autonomy, and their sovereignty over their body, over their decision. That is the main thing that they need to get back.
The support that they're giving mentally will be as important, if not more important, than the support they're given physically, particularly if they return emaciated, in ill health. I mean, this is something beyond comprehension, how their lives have been changed by the last 2 years. So we wish you very well with those efforts.
True. Let's remember all of them. Some of them have been suffered immensely from malnutrition and tortures, and they maybe some of them haven't seen light for the light of day for maybe a year or more. So even the physical is going to be for some of them very hard.
Donald Trump is getting a lot of credit for helping to secure this peace deal. Talk of him being given the Nobel Peace Prize. What are your thoughts on that, Gili?
I really hope so. I think that this is clearly a point of saving life and bringing the possibility of peace, or at least like a ceasefire that's going to save lives. I don't think somebody can be more deserving this price of something that is not metaphorical. It's not even a process. He actually managed to end this war. I have to say, to be completely honest, I was already starting to be unoptimistic about our ability to end this war in the upcoming years even. It seems that either of the side, no Hamas or this government, or the Israeli government, were willing enough to put a plan how it's going to be dissolved. So all the credit goes to him. Really, all the credit goes to him. He put all of his political capital, all the pressure, got all the actors in line that we asked for a lot of time. For 2 years, we are begging to demand from Qatar, from Turkey, from Egypt, to put all of their pressure and to bring Hamas to the table in these conditions. So I think that, of course, he should get this prize, and I will be very moved in order to see this, because this is actually what we imagine and inspire when we want to see people resolving conflict. So it's true, it's not a lasting peace. That will take much more time and effort, but this is a crucial breaking point.
Have you been critical in the past of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when it comes to perceptions, perhaps among some who have been caring for the families of the hostages, that this has been overtly prolonged, perhaps for his own political gain?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my main criticism is always been put on Hamas. I think this is the focus. I think that you can see it today. They could have ended it like a long time ago. Just give up your weapon, give the hostages. That could be over like a long time ago. But even Netanyahu, I think that, yes, also for political reasons, and because he had really governing like the worst Israeli government ever existed, with people who are between radicals and lunatics, with ideas of like our future that are completely unacceptable, and he was drawn by some of them to not doing what he did, actually what Trump forced him to do. Say exactly how you want this war to end. Show a plan, commit to a plan, and then put all the pressure on the other side. We are begging for this. We are marching in the streets. We're demonstrating for 2 years, almost every day, surely every week, Tens of thousands of Israelis, 100,000 of Israelis are demanding that. This is an overwhelming support for more than a year of between 60 to 80% now of Israelis supporting like the end of the deal, the end of the war for the return of the hostages. And I think that it took him a lot of time. Most of the blame should be put on Hamas, of course, and also many of pro-Hamas propaganda and pro-Hamas demonstration and people who are claiming to support the Palestinians, but they actually supported the prolonging of the war. This is the main problem. But yes, there was also a problem with the Israeli side, and we did our best. Really, we did our best to pressure our own government to be in the situation that we are today.
It's a hopeful time. It's a hopeful moment. I hope we're going to end on a note of hope. I don't want to betray any confidences or invade your sister's privacy, but how is Yarden doing?
Well, today she's much better.
Yes.
It's a long process. The healing process is a long process, but I really hope for every single hostage and every single family to be in this process, because the amazing thing about it is that you are alive, that you are safe, and you can focus on your healing and not on your survivor. And although it is a long and slow process, also for Yarden and for our family, we are hoping for their return. And also our family has suffered loss. We have our family member Carmel Gat, who was murdered in captivity. Yes. So we know what is it also to get a body back instead of a living person. It makes all the difference in the world. So I really hope for them to return safely and nothing to be damaging this incredible agreement that's going to save life of so many people. Let's see it happening. I really hope for all of them to be in this healing process next week already.
Yes. Gili, you've achieved so much with all of your campaigning, and we wish you all the very best for the next phase of this journey. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Daily Team.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a happy day. Thank you.